Hello, everyone. Cooperman257 here, once again to do another political discussion. Joining us again is Tom, or the Ghost, and a long-time, guest has returned after many years. Red Robin 108, or Robin, if you will.
I'm fine with either.
The last time I was here with Tom, we discussed basically Andy Burnham being blocked, as well as apparently another Tory reform defection. But now we have perhaps an even more bigger scandal on the wane, as we discussed the recent events have happened last week, where Keir Starmer's premiership may be on the line, as it turns out that his former U.S. ambassador, the Prince of Darkness, had much more ties to the most infamous predator of at least the late 20th and earliest 21st century, and as a result of that, would see possibly committed treason, if you will, and as a result, Starmer has had to, get rid of his right-hand man, if you will, or he stepped down. Morgan Mcsweeney, this guy here. So basically, with him gone this weekend, with this weekend gone, everyone has been talking whether or not Keir Starmer will resign. Which that's been mostly the debates to today, with I believe the Scottish Labour leader Anas Sawara calling him to quit, but it turns out he has not, which leads his position in jeopardy. But nevertheless, we're discussing whether or not the events of today have guaranteed Starmer to survive into at least the locals, or if he'll be gone by the end of the week. Now, Tom and Robin have already discussed this briefly a bit with Captain Swiss, but I wasn't there because I was at work at the time, so I figured why not make a follow-up stream unofficially. So, with that introduction about, I'm going to hear from, I guess, Robin and Tom now. So, hey.
I'll let Tom start. If he's up for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty odd day, to say the least. They started off with it looking like Starmer was very possibly not even going to make it to the end of the week, because of how dire the situation was for him. And then the leader of Scottish Labour, Anas Sawar, came out and openly said that he needed to resign as Prime Minister. And then basically he forced his cabinet ministers to all come out and back him, because he said that if they didn't, he would sack them. And it's given this illusion for the Starmerites to act as if he somehow recovered and rescued this premiership, even though all that he's really done is bought himself enough time to last until the Gorton by-election and until more of these files come out about Mandelson that will reignite this scandal again.
So basically, he's delayed the inevitable.
Pretty much, which, to be fair, is becoming an increasingly defining trait amongst his leadership at the moment.
Yeah. Basically, if I recall, this is very, as many people have commented, very Boris Johnson-like, with the whole Chris Pincher scandal that broke the straw that broke the camel's back out of all the scandals that happened in that premiership.
Similar to that in many ways, I would say.
Mm-hmm. But so let's see, because I know that you had some people like Andrew Marr thinking that he might not survive today, or at least this week, and that seemed to be what, as you said, seemed to be going on the time. But at the moment, it seems like that he might have just secured himself, and like you said, either the by-election at the end of this month, or the locals is when he likely, get booted out. So, but yeah. So, I don't know, Robin, what have you been making of today's events?
To just go off what you said, I wouldn't rule out him getting booted before the locals, so I would call it more, say, 20-30% chance. But like, just how do I even word this? Like, everything that's gone on, like, you're forcing your own MPs to go out the bat for you because it was clear, like, everybody started to question it. It's one of those things of once one person said it, everybody started noticing of you know, the cabinet's being very quiet. Nobody's came out to back him.
Yeah,
After
cool.
everything that's going on, like in like 3 or 4 hours, nobody came out to back him, and it was only after then, obviously, I think it was rumors circulating. I'm not sure if it was confirmed, to where he started threatening MPs who didn't start backing him. But again, probably behind their back, a lot of those, including, by the way, I should say, Wes Streeton, who's on thin ice when it comes to his majority and has leadership aspirations himself. I don't think he hides it.
Yeah, I think he was.
Even
I
he
think he
came
was
out
on.
back.
Yeah, it came on back. I think he was on Sky News with was it Beth Rigby discussing how he regrets associating himself with Mandelson or something.
He says that, and then he had to release his text from last year, where he was literally sending texts off with kisses. You don't do that for somebody who you regret being with.
Oh boy, but
Is
yeah.
all I'm saying.
Which is quite interesting because you talk about the leadership thing. And I remember in the last stream I was discussing with Tom, he seemed at the time thought that Streeting was likely to be the one to do the most well against Farage or Tories or whatever if Burnham wasn't leader. I assume, Tom, after the recent events, you no longer think that.
Generally not, no. What Streeting is desperately trying to do is he's trying to distance himself from Mandelson as much as he can, and the release of those selective texts that he sent to Mandelson is proof of that. But the problem is that he's just too deeply connected to Mandelson for him to be able to do that even more than Starmer was. So that is going to be a millstone around him for his entire leadership campaign.
Yeah, and the members aren't likely to forget that, nor the fact that he was a member of the Labour right that had undermined the left for years.
That's also another factor as well that will weaken his campaign significantly.
Yeah. But let's see his chart. I did heard that originally Morgan Mcsweeney was planning to have Starmer as the Neil Kinnock and then have Wes Streeting as the Tony Blair. But of course, then Boris screwed it with the scandals. Liz Truss guaranteed the Tories' destruction, and Rishi Sunak could not actually recover Labour, so they ended up being stuck with Starmer when they thought they might have had more time to get Streeting in, but. Seems like that would end up being the case, though. Granted, I think regardless of whether or not, let's see, Streeting could have become PM or not before then and all that stuff. Let's see, the connections to Mandelson will screw him either now or then, if let's see from the sounds of things. So yeah. So but yeah. Now, granted, from my understanding, that let's see, the first one to come out in support of Starmer was David Lammy, right?
Yes, it was him.
Yeah, fair enough. Which I think was it you or someone else in the Twitter chat said that he'd most likely be that he would be the most loyal member for Starmer's let's see cabinet, or at least die on the hill like this one guy for Boris Johnson.
Yeah, it's similar to him. Oliver Dowden is the comparison I made, where Oliver Dowden stuck by Boris to the very end. I see Lammy doing something similar to that. It'll either be him that does it, or it'll be Steve Reed. He's another one of those slavishly devoted Starmer acolytes who will always back him no matter what he does.
Kind of like son Nadine Dorris as well, I guess.
Yeah, that's another one as well. Steve Reed, probably comparable to like Nadine Dorries.
Yeah, the interesting one thing about David Lammy I have heard about is mostly when people were discussing if Starmer was going to be booted or not, is whether or not he'd stay on until like a leadership election or Labour was going to have an acting prime minister. And David Lammy, I think, was the one that people thought like he'd be acting PM until they get like a new leader. Do you think that could be a possibility if Starmer is booted out, let's see, this week or by election?
It is possible, but I don't think it's overall likely. I think Starmer would stay on as leader until the leadership contest ends. I don't think we'd get an interim leader.
That's fair. I mean, the last interim leader has been basically Harriet Harman because, well, granted, Ritzy for Corbyn, Tom Watson stepped down before the last election. So regardless of whether or not Corbyn will step down after the results immediately or not, let's see, there's no deputy leader to be acting leader, if you will.
This is one thing I complain about Bullet, right? And my old lecturer put it way about it. That at least in the Blair years, or at least Wilson had, an embarrassment of riches when it came to who could succeed him. You had Ben and you had Castle, and then you had a lot. And then you went to Blair, and then there was always Brown. You look at Starmer, he never really did a plan B. He never really thought, and I think it's his ego talking of what if, he never really planned for what if I'm kicked out on my ear. He never really planned for the future of the party after that stage. So he never really planned a successor. That's why if the PLP had any sort of successor that they could unify behind, I think they would have done it by now. And I think he would be gone by now. I think I would still in it and as Tom has said before, it's the same problem that Boris Johnson had. It's hard to unify behind somebody when nobody's been planned for it.
Oh, yeah, let's see, because Gordon Brown was always the kingmaker, even though the left did try to do a leadership thing, but they couldn't get enough support. But yeah, granted, I think as we were discussing earlier, Streeting seemed to be the ideal choice. But now with the whole Manderson, Prince of Darkness scandals, if you will, that chance has been gone. And we know that for the members, their preferred candidate to succeed Starmer is not even in Parliament.
Yeah, so the next one will be Rayner, and even then, I think this is. I'm saying my prediction before a leadership thing has even happened, or any scandals come out, or any details that come out. Keep in mind, one's under investigation, and the other one is continuity Starmer. I think that's what you'll be hinted at. I think it'll be sort of 55, 45, 60, 40, Rayner, Streeting.
That's fair.
Yeah,
Let's
I
see.
think it'll probably be quite similar to what happened with the deputy leadership contest, where it was Lucy Powell versus Bridget Phillipson, where basically Powell ended up winning by 55%. I think that's what Rayner would probably end up winning by in the end.
I mean, knowing the cursed magical numbers, it might be 52-48 by, because British politics, it loves those two numbers.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Ideally, I think either one of them would have like a mandate of like 60-30, like what happened between Corbyn and Owen Smith. But I don't think the party would probably be too divided for something like that to happen, basically. But yeah. If I had to pick myself, since I'm still like a member of the party, I'd probably vote Rayner, as I did vote Lucy Powell, mostly to like spite Starmer, which well, granted, ideally, she might have been a more ideal choice before her scandals happen, but since we're not getting Andy Burnham, it's either her or like Streeting, and frankly, I think I would prefer at least a soft left candidate over a Blairite or right wing candidate of Labour.
I would ask. It's strange to ask the host, but who would you prefer? If you had to guess, who would run?
Well, if I had to pick, ideally, I'd probably, of the ones that were there, it's ideally probably Burnham, even though I'd probably prefer perhaps maybe someone a bit more left wing, but I'd realistically...
If it came down to, say, Al Kearns, Rayner Streeton, say they were the last three.
Who's the first one again?
Al Kearns, who I think is a bit of a dark horse, you know.
He's
but
Alcorn's basically a new MP from the 2024 intake. That
I have heard he might have a bit of skeletons from his military days. Let's put it that way.
Alan Kerr, did you say?
Yeah.
Is it Is it K-E something or?
The CAIRAINS, I think it is.
CAI, what else? Oh, I see it. Wait, this is the former MP. What's the name of the constituency of the MP, out of curiosity?
I'll look it up. CII. No, I went full Geordie there. I'm sorry.
his constituency is Birmingham, Surrey Oaks.
Let's see. Birmingham.
I'm sorry, I went into a full Geordie accent there for half a second.
Sally MP. Birmingham Sally MP.
Oh yeah, he's ex-military. He's a bit of an outsider, but again, not much is known about him. That's the risk.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I see who he is. All right.
He also, as far as I know, didn't go to university, but again, I've heard he might have a couple of skeletons when it comes from his service in Afghanistan.
Okay, so a bit of a skeleton in the closet. That might be the dark horse, but those skeletons could, let's see, affect the membership's opinion of him.
Again, he reminds me of sort of, leadership elections gone by. A Don Jarvis, a Clive Lewis. He reminds me of sort of that type.
I suppose, depending on what I see of him during campaigning and stuff, maybe. But my initial, I guess, pick would probably be Rayner, just because soft left, sort of, I believe, is a part of the working class and arguably would be the first female Labour Prime Minister. Not that anything of that really matters, really, but it would shut up those who would saying Labour never gets a female leader. But I feel like, at the very least, it feels like she'd try to do at least some decent policies before, Labour gets booted out when reform comes in or something. Granted, the only downside is, of course, the skeletons in the closet and, the wider public probably still not really forgiving her. But yeah.
I think if HMRC clears her, she's off the hook, and she can go, right, I was sacked before any of this models and stuff kicked off, so, I had nothing to do with it. I think she has a pretty clear run of it if she's smart about it.
Yeah. Arguably, she seems to be at least somewhat semi-competent, at least when it comes to, the Labour MPs that have been about over the last few years, so I could see her doing pretty good on this. The only thing she has to do is to handle, I guess, whatever media attacks that come her way. But let's see, she seemed to do quite well when Corbyn was being attacked relentlessly during his time.
Also, in a tab, it's pure optics politics, but in a tab, you need to get the North back. It is helpful to have a Northerner as leader.
Yeah, arguably that would probably also be another appeal to her, is the fact that she is a Northern MP compared to Streeting, who has sort of the let's see, Prince of Darkness
I mean,
associations.
Streeton's majority is fairly tiny, from what I know.
Oh yeah, 500 seats, 500 votes off. So it's like
Streeton wishes he had 500 seats.
but yeah, 500 votes. So yeah, Streeting, yeah, he's not really secure. It's very likely an independent could beat his seat, and even if he tries to move to another seat that's more secure, people will just accuse him of being a coward. So
I mean, if Raider went full, dark woke, say in the leadership debate, if Street never tried to pull up the whole HMRC thing, Raider could just go, at least it wasn't associated with a pedo. And then that would end it all.
Arguably, yes, though. Let's see. So, yeah, arguably,
for legal reasons, I mean to say allegedly.
Yeah, let's refrain from using that infamous word for the stream, I suppose. So,
only for Epstein, you could probably use that word, and maybe
get away with it.
Orange Man.
But yeah, but yeah. So, So, at the moment, let's see. The one thing that seemed to people were debating on whether or not Starmer was finished today was this guy Anna. Hold on, let's see. Anna Sawa, the Scottish Labour leader, was the first person to call out officially for Starmer to go. That was like a big figure in Labour. Which there was talks about the Welsh First Minister also doing it, but she did not. And then let's see, people were wondering if like anyone else was going to come out, and then they didn't. And now it looks like his position in Labour is not going well. Let's see. Now, I assume, Tom, you know more about it.
Sorry, what?
Scottish Labour leader Anna Sawa calling out for Starmer to go, being like the first major figure, but let's see, the Welsh Labour leader didn't really do that, and no one from the cabinet did, so his positions look very tenable.
Oh yeah, Sawa is in a very awkward situation with this, because he looks kind of isolated due to being the only one who ended up calling for him to resign, and that makes it a question as to where he goes from here and what he decides to do moving forward, because in the Scottish elections, he'll be campaigning under the Labour banner, but many people are now going to ask him, how can you campaign for a leader that you have no confidence in, amongst other things?
Yeah, I suppose his plan was try and make Scottish Labour as very much distance from Starmer's government as much as possible, but something tells me he's not going to be that very successful, given the fact that his last Scottish leader election, he failed to unseat Nicola Sturgeon, so, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that Callum in the chat put forward a theory that was quite interesting about what Sawa did, why Sawa did this. And basically, the theory is that Sawa is trying to distance himself from the daily screw ups that occur in Westminster, and is trying to present himself as a clear sort of alternative to Westminster, where he's basically saying, yes, we know Labour are terrible at the Westminster level and the Prime Minister is terrible, but I'm different, Scottish Labour is different, and we have drawn our own line in the sand, so vote for us and you won't just get a branch office of the Labour Party in Scotland, and basically trying to claw back votes which were lost to the SNP, Reform and other parties, and try and come in second place in Scotland. That's the hope, at least, anyway, as to why he may have decided to do this.
Yeah, he must be pretty much been annoyed with Starmer for a while now, given the fact that it looked like Scottish Labour was about to have a full-on recover after Witsy winning off many of the MPs back from the last, the 2024 general election, and it looked like they were on course to gain the Scottish Parliament back. But then, of course, Starmer, just being Starmer, ruined all that, and now it looks like Reform's going to take second place instead, and it looks like Scottish Labour's about to lose even more seats than they have over the years.
Can I just read out a comment because it came up here from Frank?
Yeah, I shared it.
If the future leader lost their seat in a particular moment at a GE, then we'll try Pierre. Sorry if I pronounced this wrong. Pavilier. Did I get that right? And try and force themselves into a safe seat in a by-election. I'm just trying to read out whatever comment comes in, to be honest.
By the way, if you're wondering what that's being referred to there, Pierre Poilievre is the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, who, up until Donald Trump got elected again and Justin Trudeau resigned, was basically seen as the Prime Minister in waiting in Canada. Canadians basically viewed him the same way that we viewed Starmer after 2022, where he was basically the PM in all but name because of how badly the Tories messed up, and it was basically guaranteed that he was going to win. Pierre Poilievre was seen as that for the longest time in Canada, but those dreams ended in tears because of Trump and because of Justin Trudeau leaving. What actually ended up happening to Poilievre in those elections is his seat or riding, as it's called over there, of Carleton was lost to the Liberals, and so he was no longer a member of Parliament, but he stayed on as leader of the Conservatives, and so he was parachuted into a seat in Alberta, which is a province of Canada, which is widely seen as an ultra-safe conservative province, basically the equivalent of Surrey or Essex here, where he was virtually guaranteed to win it, and he did, and ended up going back into Parliament in the end. And Frank here is basically saying that if somebody like Streeting lost his seat in the GE, but Labour ended up getting a majority, what would happen is there'd be an interim deputy prime minister that would take over, and Streeting would get parachuted into like a safe seat for Labour in like Liverpool or Manchester or somewhere like that, and then he'd become prime minister once he
This seems like a massively roundabout way to do it.
I know. I mean, this has never really happened in British politics, so it's very unlikely. But I suppose if a situation like this did happen,
it may have happened, but probably not for at least a century.
I can't think of any example where it did off the top of my head, but to be fair,
ironically enough, we would need Callum since he seems to be the PM historian when it comes to this
probably
stuff.
we'd need Callum on here to do it. But no, but to be fair, it was pretty unprecedented in Canada as well for that to happen. It was very unexpected that Poilievre would lose his seat. So that made it quite awkward because it was a very weird position at the time that was going on in Canada, where there was technically no official leader of the opposition because the leader of the opposition couldn't go into Parliament because he was not an MP. So that made parliamentary scrutiny quite weird for months on end until eventually he got his safe seat and then came back in.
Yeah, I think see wherever government in the UK, if that happened to that, I don't think they would wait for their leader to come back in and probably point someone else as PM. I don't know if they would actually keep the leader that lost their seat because, well, leaders who usually lose their seat, like the recent example, Joe Swinson resigned after losing to the SNP, which to this day was one of the only few moments I enjoyed of the 2019 election.
I think that probably it would depend upon the type of leader. If it's somebody who's like superpower hungry, like Wes Streeting, I could very well foresee a situation where the day after the election, someone in a safe seat is forced to stand down. He runs in a by-election that's held, as soon as reasonably possible, and then he wins and then ends up being PM proper.
Yeah, the only problem with that is what if he doesn't win that by-election, and the people of that constituency were so annoyed at having to do another vote after doing one in a general election, and they vote whoever's the strongest opposition.
I think
in that scenario, then they'd be forced to resign. Like, if they lose 2 elections back to back, then yeah, they'd be forced to go. They'd be like, well, sorry, you've lost 2 by-elections in a row. We can't have you anymore. So goodbye.
I mean, I think this is a lesson for any future PM, no matter what party you're from. If I mean, we should have learned with Boris Johnson. Well, definitely learned with Starmer. If you want your legacy to succeed, if you want your ideology to succeed, if you become PM, have a successor in mind that is in your mold.
Successors are always a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, the reasons for having one you've outlined, but the other problem with designated successors is that they often plot. When you designate a successor, they often plot and want to take you down as soon as possible so that they can take over the throne. This is also quite a common characteristic that exists in a lot of authoritarian or dictatorial systems, where the dictator will never officially designate a successor, because if they do, then that successor is just going to spend all their time plotting their downfall and then striking when the opportunity is right. So they keep the succession ambiguous as possible so that nobody plots because nobody knows.
I remember that Rishi Sunak was, many people considered perhaps the unofficial successor to Johnson, but then, of course, he went sour with Johnson supporters when he backstabbed him after Prince scandal, if you will.
Oh yeah, that did happen with Sunak, where he ended up losing the leadership in the membership vote. But to be fair to Sunak, the problem that he had with that is that Tory membership is mad. So, I mean, this is a membership that voted for Liz Truss.
Oh, yeah. To be honest, I think this is often why Tory MPs often hope that they're able to select a leader before the membership gets a vote in.
Well, that's what they basically did with Sunak and how he came into power in the first place.
Yeah.
They basically made it so that there would be no leadership elections because they forced everybody else to stand down through intimidation.
Oh, yeah.
I'm kind of laughing about it because it reminds me of when at the time there were all these rumors that Boris was going to come back. And all the funny memes that got posted when that was going on, which I still remember them, and it's still great even now. Just had all these any mentions of Boris potentially coming back and it seeming quite likely led to images of like those funny gifs of him just getting spammed everywhere, and it was really amusing.
Oh yeah. Granted, I suppose you could say the same thing sort of happened in when Brown replaced Blair, where everyone was making sure that Brown got to be the leader rather than face a challenge against John McDonnell. But let's see now whether or not if John McDonnell and Gordon Brown could have fought each other in a leadership election, the members voting. I mean, at the time, Brown would still probably win due to the setup there. I think Lewis Goodwill in his book at the time said that McDonnell would have probably done a lot more better than some people thought, but yeah. Let's see. Oh, Frank has also posted the Tory MPs must have hated it when Truss beat Mordaunt to second in the final MP voting round of the summer 2022 leadership election. Yeah, honestly, I think
by all accounts were not particularly happy when that happened.
Who was not happy?
The Tory MPs.
Oh yeah. I can't really sort of like blame them, to be fair, because it's like if at least with like Rishi Sunak and Mordaunt, you would have at least had two, I guess, would probably be in their eyes semi-decent candidates to replace Johnson. Granted, we all know that every Tory MP is awful, but still, at least to them, they wouldn't have had to deal with the incompetency of Liz Truss because she pretty much guaranteed the death of the Tory party in the next election, regardless. But yeah. So Penny, let's see if Penny Mordaunt, let's see. Granted, probably the members might have voted her over Sunak, but I don't know. At the very least, you wouldn't have had like the 50 days of chaos with her at the very least. So, well, 49 technically.
I think the reason why people ended up voting for Truss, apart from like right-wing loony reasons, is because basically at the time, well, probably still to this very day, if it had been Mordaunt versus Sunak, then all the membership would have been uproar because they would have seen it as, oh, we're being forced to pick two woke candidates, and this is not real conservatism. So this is not acceptable to us.
Well, they probably should have said either take it or leave it attitude, really, because look what Liz Truss did, though, even though the members would never admit that she's probably was that goddamn awful. But yeah. Look, funny enough, I think another, I believe, ideal candidate for the Tories that was screwed over was James Cleverly, because I think he was the MP's favourite, but due to like they're trying to prevent. Was it let's see, Banadoc or
because the Tory MPs were just idiots with how they voted. What had happened with that is that Cleverly's backers were so confident that he was going to get into the second round against Generic that they decided to all like tactically vote for Badenoch because they were so confident that he would win that they were hoping that it would be Badenoch versus Cleverly and Cleverly would win, but it completely backfired because too many of them voted for Badenoch.
Oh yeah, let's see. Talk about poor planning of like getting like just trying to do what Boris Johnson supporters did against Michael Gove. But yeah, that they should have planned that. And arguably the candidate no one thought was going to win ended up winning, which granted as a result, Janet has now of course defected to Reform, so they may have dodged a bullet with that one, but still. I'm not sure if the Tories would have done better if James Cleverly would have been leader, but at the very least, probably maybe at least a better head start than what Badenoch's done, because she's only now started to do arguably well, but it might be too late for that.
See, the thing is with Cleverly, in my opinion, he was a bit of a sarcastic dick, but he could run a department. So, like, it's... he was better with comebacks than Badenoch, I'll say that, but I'm not sure you would see much change in the polls.
That's fair. I think his chance of becoming leader might be gone for now unless he sticks around after the next election. Oh, we've got another comment from Frank saying, does Wepstein Streeting really think he can indicate himself by releasing the WhatsApp messages with Mandy? Nobody will read them.
Wepstein Streeting.
Oh, dear. Yeah, since they're not public knowledge, I don't get Streeting's whole thing with, well, I was never really that close to Madison. Like, mate, you were signing off your text with kisses. You had to, you were forced to release your text messages from a year ago. You were sending them off with kisses. That's not something you say to somebody you were not close to.
Honestly, I think at this point, MPs should probably stay off of WhatsApp.
I mean, I after signing it off with kisses, I have a few theories about Madison and Streeting, but I dare not say them in public.
Yeah, I'd rather not have that image in my head.
I think you get what I'm alluding to, but I'm not going to say it.
I think that with the problem with Streeting at the moment is he wants to be PM desperately, and he's basically had that view for at least a decade at this point. But he's not been able to find the opportune moment to go for it and actually trigger a leadership to increase his chances of becoming PM. He keeps screwing it up, so
he has the political equivalent of blue balls.
I guess there's one
pretty
chance of maybe it happening was after the Hampstead and Hartlepool by-election, but Starmer got lucky that the next by-election he just barely won.
I tell you, that knife he is sharpening is the sharpest knife that has ever been sharp.
Oh yeah,
Because he's been doing it for that long.
Yeah, he's waiting for the opportune moment to strike, but he just doesn't know when the right time to actually trigger the leadership contest is. And that's the problem.
That knife he's been sharpening could cut diamonds.
Yeah. Let's see. But yeah, in many ways, it looks like Streeting's about to be another chapter in, I think, was it Steve Colwell's Prime Ministers Who Never Were book and all that stuff, if you know who I'm referring to.
Oh, yeah, I know about that book.
Let's see. I actually got that book. I still need to read it, but yeah. But yeah, it looks very much likely that, it's the Rayner by default, not because everyone is 100% enthusiastic. It might have been like a year ago at least, but now it's like the best of like whatever bad option, unless I don't know, people suddenly start supporting maybe Ed Miliband again, but that's
we are going back a decade.
Yeah. See, in hindsight, Miliband probably should have just let his brother become the leader, then get the blame for losing Scotland, then come in.
As the old philosophy goes, when dating, never go back to your ex, because it never ends well.
Oh yeah.
I've said before on here why I don't think Miliband would be particularly great if he took over. But
yeah,
at this stage, I think Labour may be so desperate that they might be willing to just risk it and go with Miliband.
Right? Could you say Miliband took over at the wrong time? No, that's a debate. And obviously, we're talking about alternate timelines, but if he took over, say, 5 years after Corbyn, or no, after you've had 5 years, say after 5 years of Corbyn, then you have Miliband. Would that have worked out better? That is a thinking point.
I don't think it would have, personally, because Miliband would have had all the same problems and criticisms put forward towards him that were put forward at the time when he was leader. But then again, it could have also possibly been a case where it may have been like with Starmer, it may have been a win by default situation.
Yeah. So, I guess it could also depend if, like, let's see, Starmer was just like what people thought at the time best of the bad options, but if Miliband came in, it was like, you know what, he might actually be somewhat decent. But yeah, because I don't think Miliband ever made any comments during Corbyn's years, but yeah. Frank is once again saying, I was diverting my attention from the stream when it started to apologize to John. Did you lot discuss who was meant to jump ship with Savaro but bottled it? Oh yeah, there's been a lot of conspiracy theories about who persuaded him to do that. But I think some thought Streeting might, but it seems like that might not really be the case.
The Welsh First Minister was another name that I heard as well, as a potential person who could have gone for it.
I don't know how to pronounce her first name. Elland, I think it is. Morgan.
Elland is what it is, yeah. Elland Morgan.
Fair enough. Anyway, I'm just going to go to the toilet quickly. Do you guys want to discuss the upcoming by-election while I'm doing that, just to keep the stream going?
Oh, lordy. I basically think I said...
yeah.
I think I said... Well, to make my opinion clear, I think I said in Squid's stream, Labour sort of torpedoed their chances. Only to probably get rid of that leader probably about a month and a half, 2 months later. So it's honestly such a missed opportunity. But like, again, I'm a big believer in what goes around comes around. So you stop Byrne from running, and if he does resign after that, it might be that by-election that you stopped him from running that starts your down, or that becomes your downfall. So, karma's a bitch, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Labour has got no chance in Gorton and Denton, like literally no chance whatsoever. Um, they screwed up their chances when Starmer decided that his political status was more important than that by-election. They were already predicted to come third, but this whole debacle with Mandelson has completely solidified that that's going to happen now. There's no chance they're winning in Gorton. No chance whatsoever. Um,
Um,
the question is who will win between the Greens or Reform? That's the one that's a more difficult question to ask because whilst Labour is toast in Gorton, both the Greens and Reform say that it's incredibly tight between the two of them.
As far as I can tell, official polling. Sorry, go on.
I would say that if Pulaski decided to run, I would say they actually could have run it pretty close. I would say that in terms of a by-election, in terms of the Greens, picking the aid of Mike, but also pick even though Burnham's the Scouser, in the mayor election, he won. I think it was every district. I'm gonna call them districts and not gonna call them wards because that's what we call them in Ireland. So I think he won every district. So it would be stupid to not pick at least a mic for either of the parties. They're running that seat. I think isn't the Greek candidate Greek? Like it's
No, that's the Labour candidate.
okay, right? So why like just from a common sense, but I know the whole thing of Starmer's trying to retain his job and that will backfire on him. But like, why would you pick a random Greek? Sarge is watching this. There's no chance there is, but Sarge is watching a random Greek NPC. Over the guy who has won literally every ward in Manchester the last time he was elected. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
As was said before, Starmer was more interested in keeping his job and maintaining his position than he was about winning Gorton. From his
You know,
perspective, losing Gorton is worth it if it means he keeps his job. That's what he thinks.
yeah, I do wonder if perhaps the stuff with Mandelson came out first. That might have made some NEC consider Burnham as an alternative.
No, it didn't. None of that stuff was known before the NEC made their decision.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, what if the Mandelson stuff came out before a decision
To
was
be
made?
honest, you had members on there like Akers who was still defending him, even after everything came out, was still defending him. So I'm not sure the decision will be much different.
Okay, fair enough. Brankett's comments: Green candidate is a local Mancunian plumber, and Matt Goodwin is Matt Goodwin. Yeah, that sums up Goodwin pretty much.
I'm still blown away by the fact that he's the Reform candidate for Gorton and Denton. Like,
He still has yet to answer Bastani's question of what do you prefer, Britain first or Israel first? He still has yet to answer that question.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's like always pick your country over another one. If you're supposed to be like the patriotic candidate.
like when I saw him get picked, after I got over my initial shock of him being the candidate, my second thought that came afterwards was, Jesus Christ, Reform UK are so terminally online that it's not even funny. Like,
Oh yeah. You've got basically a hack political commentator who always favors more of like his side in predictions and stuff, and remains silent whenever it doesn't go his way. I still remember the German elections back when the SDP, back in 2021, came first for the first time in 16 years, and he was talking about, oh, this is not such a great comeback, even though they were the largest party, and even if they didn't get the same vote size as they used to back in the 2000s and late 90s, they're still the largest party, and the Greens came in third. So it's like regardless, they still did sort of well, and I still remember the fact that he was forced to eat his own book after Corbyn got like 40% of the vote in 2017.
Yes,
Also-
I remember that. That's a quite infamous thing from him now, where he had to eat his own book because he said he'd do that if Corbyn got like about 34% of the vote or something like that.
Oh yeah.
For a certain James Field, I'm still waiting for. Remember whenever Galloway said he would eat his own hat if he wasn't elected? Yeah, we're still waiting for that.
But to be fair, I think the reason why he hasn't done that is because, as is so typical of him, he basically said that the Batley and Spen by-election was rigged, and that's the position which he has held to this very day.
George Galloway?
For someone who hates Trump so much, that is a very Trumpian position to take of, if I didn't win, it's rigged. That is a very Trump-like thing to say.
We're talking about George Galloway, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm
In
the only
some
one.
ways-
I'm the only one here who has actually had a photo with him and has actually met him.
Oh yeah.
By the way, he is fucking tiny. He is literally about 5'1".
Yeah.
I'm not joking.
Ironically, George Galloway may have saved Starmer's premiership before with that by-election defeat. But yeah, you were saying, Tom?
Yeah, Frank here has said, I'd not be surprised if Mike Graham or that guy that runs Radio Genoa is one of Reform's candidates. There's no way he's Italian. Every other tweet is about Sadiq Khan's London. No, Radio Genoa's not Italian. He's some dude from Cambodia that just gets Twitter blue money by posting rage bait for far-right Americans to watch.
Given where these things usually tend to come from, there's a Russian, Cambodian, Serbian, Indian. Like, he's definitely not British. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's what Radio Genoa is. He's pretty much just an engagement farmer on Twitter, rage bait poster, who just posts loads of rage bait on his Twitter account for MAGA Americans to reply with disapproval to, and posts about how Europe has fallen and all that nonsense. That's what Radio Genoa is. But yeah, with the way Reform's going, I wouldn't be surprised if he was one of their candidates in the future.
Okay.
They're just becoming that terminally online and utterly ridiculous with the people that they pick to be their candidates.
Fair enough. Anyway, speaking of candidates for Reform, at the moment, I think most pollsters say that Reform is going to win the by-election, but given the fact that it's Matt Goodwin and the Greens have chosen someone local, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up winning it.
Oh, I really hope they do, because if Matt Goodwin gets into Parliament, then it's just going to be utterly insufferable.
Oh yeah, we'll never hear the end of his stupid commentary and all that stuff.
Will he go on about promoting that bullshit book he made about a zeitgeist at the time that never really turned out to be true, and that this is just anecdotal, but I still have yet for him to mention 2020, the Irish election, where Sinn Féin seen a massive rise as a left-wing party. At the time, he was saying it was all right-wing parties, but I'm totally not holding a grudge or anything.
Oh yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, let's see. Yes, because despite the fact that you get some right-wing parties doing well, usually when the populists come in, they eventually end up sucking that. Eventually, they get booted out. One I'm thinking about was it? Was it? Let's see. I'm trying to think. It was one of the Netherlands regions. Who was that right-wing populist that came in first place but didn't become prime minister because the other parties wouldn't work with him?
Yeah, but Geert Wilders.
Yeah, and that was Geert Wilders.
Yeah, I think that government only lasted a year, and then his party sort of collapsed or something. But yeah.
But by the way, you two, if you're want to laugh, look up Geert Wilders standing beside Tommy Robinson. It is little and large, to say the least.
Yeah, it's quite amusing to watch. That's mainly the consequence of the fact that Dutch people are abnormally tall by global standards. Like apparently the Dutch
Oh, yeah.
are the tallest people in the world.
Well, I have Dutch blood in me, and I'm 5'7", so
I guess your Irish blood is stronger.
I guess.
Yeah, but as I also probably say that, let's see, I probably should have mentioned this back when we were talking about Canada and all that stuff, but I believe Denmark's centre-left party looked like it was going to lose its next election, but now Trump, with his invasion of Greenland talk, similar to like with Canada, has boosted that party to possibly win it.
Yeah, another tremendous Trump success.
Yeah, he should really learn to keep his mouth shut if he wants politicians similar to him to win elections, except for Argentina.
Right? Starmer has, I guarantee you, Starmer hasn't thought about this, but if Starmer wants a poll boost, he should start shit talking Trump, because that genuinely, by any other country, that seems to be how you get success.
At the very least, stop trying to kiss up to him because it's done you no favors.
Well, Tom can explain. It's got you tariffs. It's got you shit talking. But even me, as an Irish citizen, has got offended by the whole thing of, oh well, the Brits didn't do really anything in Afghanistan. It's just like, mate, fucking hundreds died for the sake of it. Like, they've insulted their military deaths, and then they put tariffs on you no matter what you said. Like, there's no winning. There's no point in fucking sticking up for them. And then you've got tariffs on top of that, and then you're threatened with sanctions. Like, there's never been a point of sticking up for them other than this whole concept of special relationship, which you will follow them into any war anyway. It's a one-sided relationship. Sorry if I went on a tangent there, but
yeah. I'll probably say whoever becomes the next Labour leader, they might gain a boost if they sort of stand up to Trump and not try to appease him like Starmer did, I say. That might be one of the few ways Labour could recover, though. Given how bad Starmer's be, I don't see them ever fully recovering or winning the next election. Unless, I don't know, Farage gets some scandal that associates him similar to what has been going on with the Prince of Darkness and the most infamous predator of the 21st century.
What's so particularly strange about the Labour right is how thoroughly dogmatically committed they are to being devoted to America and towards Atlanticism as a general whole. Like, for the Labour right, it's just completely inconceivable to them the idea of going against America on literally anything. Um, and no other party in the country is like that apart from maybe Reform. Even the Tories have factions within them that want to pursue a more independent foreign policy and distance themselves from America. But the Labour right is just so insanely devoted to them that it's crazy. And what's particularly strange about them as well is they seem to be most aligned with, on foreign policy directions, when they're in office, the Republican Party. Like, they always seem to have more of a schism with the Democrats than they do with the Republicans. And it's just so puzzling in every way. Like, I don't have an explanation as to why they're like that, other than just they love power and the Republicans love power and are willing to do anything to gain it and maintain it.
Yeah, it's like let's see, the downfall of the last two Labour governments, really, or at least the popularity of them, it always seems to be somewhat their association and kissing up to like whatever the ritzy America's doing at the time. I mean, the Iraq War literally killed Blair's popularity.
All I'm saying is the Gaul could never be more vindicated. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And also, it's one of the reasons why Corbyn was selected as Labour leader at the time, because it's like, why did we get so close to the Bush administration over Iraq? And I still remember everyone was like applauding in that leadership debate. Let's see. But yeah. Oh yeah, Frank has said Labour have no direction post Mcsweeney. I did not at all like what Morgan was doing, but there's no doubt he knew what the end goal was and subjectively achieved it. I anticipate a lot of infighting. Probably, yeah. But I do think Morgan.
Almost certainly that will happen.
Yeah,
Because they've got no vision and no belief system whatsoever, other than dominance and power. So they don't know where to go now that McSweeney is gone. So you'll just see what you'll see is lots of infighting. The PLP will exert more of its authority over Starmer, kick up a massive fuss over anything that they don't like, and force the government to concede.
fair enough. But yeah, The one thing I'll probably say is I think one thing that I think many people have been talking, particularly about Morgan Mcsweeney, is like, oh, how much of a genius or how he brought back Labour. But I think he, as a campaigner, he's pretty much overrated.
Oh, vastly so. Like, the 2024 election was just a perfect example of him winning by default because of how badly the Tories were, and all his other electoral successes have been equally mediocre, either winning because his opposition was worse or beating them in terms of seats, but the opposition sees their vote share go up anyway. He's not this political genius that people make him out to be, and he never was.
Again, when you learn his family has a long history of supporting Venezuela. So his auntie, I think, was a councillor, and I think his family has voted for like the past 3 generations for the party. So if he ends up becoming an advisor for them, Sinn Féin is rubbing their hands.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's been affiliated quite a lot with his family with Fine Gael in Ireland, um, which is not at all surprising because Fine Gael as a party has got his exact politics down to a T, so it
Yeah.
makes perfect sense why he ended up exporting that to the Labour Party.
Yeah, pretty certain Fine Gael would be foolish to get him on board after this, but yeah, but yeah. One thing I'd probably also say it's like I think it's the last arguably political strategist you could say was actually competent was I think Dominic Cummings, just because it was probably he was behind the Brexit referendum and Johnson's campaign in 2019, but even then he had some problems. And if you wanted to say genius political Brexit campaigner strategist for Labour, you would either do like whereas with Tony Blair at the time during the New Labour years, and maybe Corbyn's group in 2017, just because they managed to turn what was going to be like a landslide defeat into a hung parliament. But not definitely not Morgan Mcsweeney. It's like you just got lucky, and even then the cracks have started to show, and they've bursted completely.
Yeah, they've really got no vision or nowhere left to go now once he's gone. So
Yeah,
the whole situation's just going to get worse for the party
yeah.
and more chaotic.
Yeah, we'll probably just have to do it with a bunch of political commentators being insufferably, oh, this genius here for a while at least.
This entire scenario is a life lesson to anybody. Always have a plan B. Never just go off to the hoof, because this is where you end up to where you're having to make stuff up on the hoof, and it doesn't tend to turn out well.
Yeah, at the very least, have at least a few multiple candidates to select from, at least. Maybe at least like one or two, maybe like two or three at most. At least make sure that they at least work well together and not cause too much infighting. But yeah, but I suppose to conclude like this bit of Starmer thing, since we're going over an hour about it, at the very least, do you think he'll survive into this week, by-election, or locals?
2 weeks at most, I give him. If the by-election result is really, really bad, I give him 2 weeks.
I still believe that he will stick around until the locals. That's the position that I've held for the longest time, and it's the position that I will probably hold for quite a long time as well. But the simple fact of the
Well,
matter is,
we now know the string. Like, if you look at Israeli text, this is public information. If you look at Israeli's text messages, he definitely agreed with what half of Starmer was doing. Like, he agreed with him on or he disagreed with him on Israel. He disagreed with him when it comes to half his economic policies, and he said there was no economic direction. Now, I think that it was cowardice to say that, you know, if you felt so strongly about it, you should have made it public and resigned. But that's conversation for another day. I think Streeton will honestly be the first one to stick a knife in, and when the first opportunity comes, that will be it.
Fair enough. Let's see. So, yeah, at the very least, likely locals, unless something major happens that forces him to go sooner rather than later.
yeah, the simple reason why I think he will stick around until the locals is because nobody wants to inherit what is going to be a complete disaster of the locals election results as well as the Gorton by-election. Like, why would you want your premiership, your new premiership, to be tarnished by that failure?
Oh yeah.
Especially when you know that the media is looking for any excuse to depose you because they smell weakness. It just wouldn't be a smart decision to do.
Oh yeah.
See, I'm not saying I believe this, but devil's advocate. I'm purely playing devil's advocate here. I would say that the whole thing of in a politician's mind, a politician has an ego, and they will have the thought, "I can turn this around." The whole matter of I can change him.
Oh yeah. So if he is gone by locals, would the leadership election happen before the summer or after the summer?
Probably during the summer, I'd imagine.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, the next term of parliament to be a bit more brand new for Labour. That's fair. So arguably, if that happens, you probably have Starmer just having a few days and months longer than Gordon Brown, but that's still not really much of an accomplishment, really. But yeah. Anyway, now that that is taken care of, I think we can now finally start talking about the second topic for the stream. Is apparently the Japanese 2026 snap election, in which their first female prime minister, um, Takaichi, has won.
Takaichi.
Yeah, has won a landslide. From my understanding, the biggest majority in the election's history, with like 316 seats. Let's see, an increase of 125. Let's see, with the opposition.
Can I ask how many seats are there in the parliament? Just for our perspective.
465.
Right. Well, that's a long slide. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, from what I can, let me share this tab here, where she has won 316 seats, which they had a sort of like where there was like a minority in the last election about 2 years ago. The opposition, which my understanding is the Centrist Reform Party, which is a merger of the sort of, was it the Democratic Party of Japan and Komeito, the former coalition partners of the Liberal Democratic Party, which that's a conservative party for those who do not know in terms of Japan. And they're sort of like new party, I believe the far right party Ishin or something.
They're not a far right party. They're a weird, they're an awkward party. They have libertarian roots. They were originally a party that was called the Japan Restoration Party, and basically their focus is on federalism, particularly around Kansai, Osaka. They want Osaka to be the vice capital of Japan, and they're mainly focused around quite libertarian outlook on a lot of things, very pro free market, deregulation, that kind of stuff.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, most parties, even new ones that just gained seats or mostly kept the same from what I can tell here, with maybe like the communist and the let's see, I guess this left wing liberal parties, if you will, doing poorly, particularly like this new centrist alliance, which I'm not sure how long it's going to last now that they've been defeated. But yeah, normally, sorry, what?
They're just looking at how badly they did. They just got completely smashed. Like, 127 seats lost. Just incredible.
Oh yeah, let's see. They had a chance of being like a new third part, like opposition party, but nope, that's not happening anytime soon at the very least. But yeah, but arguably, normally Japan's elections, it's always going to be the LDP. Granted, last election, they lost their majority, which arguably was at least something that was interesting. At least the only elections they've lost is 1990. Was he free? Was it? And
it was the first election they lost was in 1993, where they were the largest party, but they failed to get enough votes to form a coalition government. So
and they only were back in 11. And they were back in 11 months later when they formed a Bretty coalition with the Socialist Party.
Yeah, there was an extremely weird situation where basically the Socialist Party teamed up with the LDP to form a unity government for God only knows what reason why, and then they got crushed at the next election, and the LDP came back in again, and then they were definitively out of power in 2009 as a result of the 2008 financial crisis, which saw the Democratic Party of Japan come in and then win in a landslide, but then get crushed 3 years later because the funny thing about the Democratic Party of Japan is that their time in government very much mirrors this Labour government. Constant infighting, no vision apart from we don't like LDP and nothing else apart from that. Multiple prime ministers, disasters, scandals, deeply unpopular policies, whacking up taxes that made people unhappy, and all things of that nature. It was very, very badly managed, so they got defeated.
And as a result, Japan hasn't had a stable opposition since.
No, the opposition in Japan is just abysmal. They're just the most incompetent, useless, dysfunctional opposition probably in the entire democratic world. They're just so bad that in some ways it just feels like they're a controlled opposition because they just so easily fail and screw up and miss easy to win goals that it's just unbelievable how they even exist at this point. Well, now as a result of this election, they basically don't exist. So
well, I think most controlled opposition governments and all that stuff would probably wish they had the Japanese opposition or something. But yeah, but yeah, from what you described, let's see. The Democratic, the 2009 to 2012 government is basically the government we have now, and the 1993 seems to be more of like what we had from like 1929 to 1931, if you will.
Yeah, essentially, that's probably the best way to sort of analogize it. But they basically came in. The LDP lost that election because it was right after the bubble economy burst. So there was a lot of discontent in the society at the time as a result of that.
Yeah, but now arguably, so like normally a Japanese election isn't really interesting to talk about, except maybe somewhat the last one and the two elections that they lost, just because someone besides the Liberal Democratic Party got in. But this one I think has at least some interest, at least at the very least, because this is Japan's first female prime minister, who is, from my understanding, is basically being regarded as like a Japanese Margaret Thatcher and was a protege of Shinzo Abe, the longest serving Japanese PM in the 21st century, at least, and arguably the most successful until he like stepped down and then got assassinated. And then scandals came out.
to be regarded with Abe, I'm not sure that's too popular in Japan, to be honest with you, unless it's with that, certain group.
It was mainly because the guy who assassinated Abe was a Japanese ultranationalist that used to be a part of the JSDF who killed him because he was seen as selling the country out to the Koreans because Abe was affiliated with a Korean cult called the Unification Church that the Abe family and the LDP in general had been inviting into Japan and operating in the country. And basically, their whole purpose in Japan was scamming people by putting forward the whole, the only way you can repent for your colonial guilt is by just giving us loads of money. So that scandal got exposed and kind of ruined their reputation. But not enough, it seems, because his protege has come in and won the biggest electoral victory for the party in its entire history.
Yeah, from my understanding, the reason why she wasn't selected the first time round is because of that association with Abe, right?
It was that, and also she was viewed as just too right wing. They thought that she was too right wing and too toxic for the public to stomach. So they went with a more moderate conservative guy, and he was a disaster. Led the party to its worst defeat since 2009 and just kept losing elections over and over again until eventually they just got fed up with him and kicked him out. And then she
Okay.
got in, and she's basically more or less turned herself into like an idol in the country. Like she has enormous personal popularity, incredibly popular politician, sort of on par with the Mexican president in terms of how popular she is personally. And another thing that also helped her as well is China had a massive hissy fit over Taiwan because she came out and said that if Taiwan got attacked, then they would maybe have to militarily intervene. And China threw a massive hissy fit, and that caused rally around the flag effect to occur, which benefited her party.
Oh
Quite
yeah,
strongly.
because another thing to mention is like the conflict. It seems like she's increasing with China because let's see, she's like let's see, like you said, this Taiwan thing, which arguably, yeah, China is like, yeah, no, Taiwan's ours and all that stuff, but Japan's getting like that. But also, she wants to sort of like amend Japan's constitution about its military because, well, it's mostly been pacified since World
Uh,
War II.
yeah, they're on the same sort of thing of, everybody jokes, you know, the minute Germany every couple of years, once Germany starts up on their military funding, everybody jokes about it, going right, they're getting ready again. Yeah, it's sort of the same with Japan. Italy doesn't sort of get that as much, but yeah, it's sort of whatever one of the Axis starts to talk about military, everybody just starts to make fun of it.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
the thing that she wants to get rid of, and this has been a policy of theirs for decades at this point, is Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution, which basically is an article that prevents the country from having a standing military uh, and outlaws the ability to settle international disputes with military means.
oh yeah, fair enough. Now, my understanding, in order to actually change it, you need like a two-thirds supermajority, which apparently she does have. So, it's
In
like one
order
of
to
these.
change the constitution in Japan, you need a two-thirds majority in both the House of Representatives and the House of Councillors, and then it needs to be put to a national referendum where you can win it with a simple majority. That's the way
To,
you change the
to,
constitution over there.
to be fair to her, your neighbor's constantly sending messages over you, so I think that may be a motivator.
Yeah. So, arguably, it seems like it's possible that she might be the one to actually do it. I mean, I still probably some things in the way, at least.
I
But
think it remains quite unlikely that she will do it, even though she does have the political means to do it now, because her problem mainly comes down to the national referendum clause, where it's not a guarantee that the referendum would end up going the way that she would want it to. And there's also the fact she still doesn't have two-thirds majority in the House of Councillors either.
yeah, but if she gets it in the House of Councillors, do you think she would do it and try and at least put it to a referendum?
I think at the moment she'll be more focused on other domestic affairs that are more of a concern to the population at the moment. I
Okay,
think she'll be much more focused on economic matters like cost of living, inflation relief, and such, and probably leave the military stuff to another time because that's the most pressing issue for people at the moment in Japan.
fair enough.
Rising cost of living and inflation. And so I think that that's going to be her primary focus for the time
Okay.
being.
Fair enough. So it might just be literally just spats between China and Japan just for the little bit before it calms down again. I suppose another factor is would the US allow it? I guess because well,
Yeah,
based
they would. They've been pushing for Japan to remilitarize ever since the CCP defeated the KMT in the Chinese Civil War. The main reason why Japan hasn't is mainly because of internal opposition within Japan itself. It's been an immense source of frustration from Washington that they've not remilitarized, and they've constantly tried over and over again to get them to do it, but it just never succeeds.
fair enough. Fair enough. Arguably, which I suppose now that they've actually got they nearly got like someone that could actually do it, but it's still unlikely to happen, which would probably be a bit of a frustration for like Washington. Still,
More than likely, yeah. That's
but yeah,
sort of that's just one of the things it's just an endless source of frustration and a tension between the two because
yeah.
what the US wants them to remilitarize, they don't, and they get frustrated by it.
Oh yeah. I suppose it's the other frustration is them is when they don't have Japan and South Korea working together, getting along, basically.
Yeah, although that, funnily enough, seems like it'll probably be resolved because the two leaders have quite a good relationship with each other, puzzlingly enough.
Oh yeah, and I guess arguably they both view China as a bigger problem now, at the very least.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that allowed them to settle their differences.
Yeah,
The China problem,
yeah.
basically.
Now, arguably, I do wonder if the China problem could get most of the public to also perhaps consider it, at least maybe if it was for a yes in the referendum. But at the moment, you say it's unlikely.
It remains unlikely because it really ultimately depends upon the behavior of China. Um, if China continues to act up and be aggressive towards its neighbors, then the response will just be the same as what's been occurring in Eastern Europe, where the Eastern Europeans have a much more aggressive stance towards Russia in retaliation for Russia's invasion of Ukraine, as an example. And a
Fair
similar
enough.
thing will happen in East Asia as well, if China continues to behave aggressively towards its neighbors.
Okay, fair enough. So military rise. Okay, fair enough. Let's see. Anyway, one thing that I've granted saw on Twitter, which we've got a skullman typing China, if you will. Nice to see you here, skullman. You missed the Labour stuff, but oh well. But one thing I kind of noticed on Twitter, at least, I'm not sure if it's true, that she's been doing quite a few quotes from Attack on Titan.
That's unfortunately just something that you have to deal with within Japan.
Which arguably I will admit is quite interesting just because if you let's see, well, Tom, you probably don't know much about anime and manga because you due to your dislike of it, that's to say the least. Attack on Titan is arguably perhaps the most politically debated anime and manga series of all time, given the fact that let's see, it's basically about military this group of like humans who trapped in wars and had to like this military of scouts and all that stuff, fighting these giant man-eating monsters and all that stuff. And there's been always controversy here. Let's see about the political ideals of the mangaka. There were some like debates of whether or not he was a Japanese imperialist when I think he got some when he compared one of its characters to this Japanese war general, and I think got death threats from like South Korean Chinese fans, if you will. But yeah. But no, granted, it's now controversially got one of the most controversial endings of anime manga of all time. But yeah, but I won't go too much into like its lore because I think you might shoot yourself in the head. I keep talking.
All right, I've seen Attack on Titan. I've seen the whole thing, and even I'm not willing to debate it.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Tom says
this is just unfortunately something that does happen within Japanese political discourse.
No, up until the third season, they start talking about Nazis and Jews in very explicit ways. Like, I will just put it that way.
Yeah, whether or not it's defending Jewish treatment or is it being anti-Semitic? But yeah. Let's see. It's Scarman saying Tom now wants to be toppled after hearing that.
By the way, Skullman is Josh and Bullet. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. I know. But yeah, the only thing I'd say is that its ending was controversial, Ritzy, and there's also like this extreme debate of whether or not the main character, basically becoming the villain, should have wiped out all of humanity or not. But I don't think you want to hear any more, Tom. So yeah.
Yeah, this is just unfortunately something that does exist.
There's a reason why when they adopted it, I think it was I forget what his name was, the blonde-haired one.
Armin.
Yeah, Armin basically said thank you for committing that. It's just like, why are you saying thank you for trying to commit a genocide? Like, it's like whenever it got adopted, it got changed, so thankfully it did.
Oh yeah. Frank says, "Going to try and get some sleep now." Thanks, John, Tom, and Robin. Fair enough, Frank. Thank you for watching as far as you could and enjoy your sleep. But yeah, so arguably she's quoted. It's in anime, though. Granted, with the anime she's done, you gotta question some of her political beliefs at the very least. But yeah. But since she's now PM, it's likely she looks like to be the next Abe, at least having a strong, stable premiership.
One of the old Shiam actually said it and went, this one has been popular with the kids the past 10 years, so I will quote that. Not knowing what it's actually about. And then, like, expect her to quote One Piece for the next 3 months. Will that actually know, what it's about and its whole thing of anti-government?
Almost certainly the reason as to why she's doing it, but it's probably also the case that she does actually watch that kind of stuff because
One Piece is a pretty left-wing sort of messaging, but expect to record it not knowing what it's about.
I think Tom was referring to the Attack on Titan one, but yeah.
This is unfortunately a thing that is characteristic of a lot of Japanese political stuff. You'll see candidates over there that will quote the cartoon stuff, and they'll even be doing like cartoon advertisements to help booster their support. Like the Communist Party did quite a famous one where it showed these characters in like chibi style doing some dance of some kind. Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing that exists within their political discourse.
Tom, are you this better? You wouldn't call it anime, you'll call it cartoon. Are you that better?
Well, it just is.
I know it is, but like, I feel like you're making a point by saying cartoon.
What?
I feel like you're making a point by saying cartoon.
Oh, I am deliberately speaking because it is just it's painful.
Watch the first 3 episodes of Full Metal Alchemist, you'll never go back.
Never gonna happen.
Yeah, I think Tom would rather kill himself than watch an anime.
I mean,
This is rich come from the guy. I'll be honest, this is rich come from the guy who played Persona and played Yakuza. But
that was years ago. But either way, with this sort of thing, like whenever we always talk about countries, internationally speaking, I don't typically make judgments on the political culture or culture in general of those countries because oftentimes I don't think it's fair to do that, and also because I think when you do that kind of stuff, it tends to fuel xenophobia, nationalism, and in a lot of cases racism towards the country that's being talked about in question. But with this sort of thing, I can't not avoid making a judgment on it because it's not good.
All right. I'd say this.
But it's the only thing that I would make any judgment on in Japan when it comes to its elections or its politics. I always give benefits of the doubt on anything else, and I always give fair representation to each side involved, even if I don't agree with the people or the actors involved. But this is just something I can't do. It's just not good.
That's it. Well, I'd probably say, Tom, at least in terms of One Piece, it seems to be more of a positive impact, given how many protest groups around the world have used it as a symbol of freedom. Yeah, which I think Robin is think it's a bit ironic if she starts quoting One Piece, but I think we'll get off the anime discussion. I think you're gonna. I think you've said what you've wanted to say, but yeah, so arguably with her landslide, it looks like she might have a very stable time of governance. At least maybe be the most stable leader since Shinzo Abe. But I guess we've seen with Starmer, landslides are not guaranteed stability.
The other particular problem as well with that is that um, it's just the general issue of the actual LDP itself. The problem with the LDP is that they are a hyper factionalized political party that is incredibly broad in terms of its internal political debate and makeup. The best way I've often described the LDP in terms of their ideology is imagine if you got the Democrats and Republicans and put them under one political party, or the Labour Party and Tory Party under one political party, and that is basically what the LDP is.
Yeah.
It's extremely broad.
Specifically, Labour undercore, because you got a lot of left and right in there.
Yeah, that's another example as well. Labour under Corbyn. Like, imagine if David Cameron and Jeremy Corbyn merged their two parties together, and this is basically what the LDP is. This extremely big, broad church political party that encompasses most of the ideologies of Japan.
So basically, it's like the leadership elections is basically the actual proper general election, basically.
More or less, the leadership elections of the LDP are more important than the actual general election itself because the chances of them losing an actual election is extremely limited.
From what I know, the Japanese tend to get sick of a party after about 30 years and then vote for another one for another 30 years. So if you get voted in, you'll be there for a while.
Yeah, that generally is how they operate. The only real exception to this is what was called the 1955 system, where basically the LDP completely dominated the political system from 1955 to 1993. Because basically what the LDP did during that time was they were actually a pretty good political party in Japan. They oversaw a number of successes when they ruled over the country. They managed to normalize relations with the rest of the world after what happened during World War II and managed to re-establish and rebuild and even establish new relations with the Allied powers and other Asian countries. through quite well thought out diplomacy. They implemented a series of economic reforms that managed to double the national income of your average Japanese person. They also managed to succeed through industrial policy and centrally planned economic policy, success in achieving dominance in a lot of key economic sectors and industries, dominance which still is held by Japan to this very day in things like certain chemicals and machinery that a lot of businesses in the world are reliant upon in order to make their products. And most of all, they provided political stability for the country that had been through utter chaos before they had taken over. Because before the LDP took over and when Japan began to experiment with democracy in the 1920s, it was complete chaos. You had a civilian government that was completely fangless and had no way of actually controlling the country. The military had far too much power, and in particular, the Home Ministry had far too much power. So, if any prime minister or party decided to oppose whatever the army was doing, they would often find themselves assassinated for doing so. So,
Okay.
having the LDP rule the country uninterrupted with none of that happening was something that people in Japan valued immensely because going from complete chaos to stability is something that many people view as more priceless than gold.
So likely the one chance of replacing them was probably the 2009 election with the Democratic Party, but they botched it in those 3 years, and as a result, people have gone back to the Liberal Democratic Party and to, I know, next big scandal completely, and then you get like a proper opposition. Which some comments from Josh here saying there's no difference between the current day Labour and the Tory parties in one party, which is arguably true. And Japan is a sort of one state party that Yankland aspires to be.
Tom, I mean this seriously. If you wrote a book on this stuff, I will buy it based on how much you know about it.
Oh, I've studied Japanese politics and most stuff related to Japan for the past 5 to 6 years at this point. It's the country alongside Russia is probably my specialty.
No, but
Researched a
no,
huge amount
like
within that.
genuinely, if you did like even like I don't know, even a small book on it, I would read it because like whatever you talk about, it does sound fascinating.
Yeah, as I said, I've always wanted to sort of understand it because it is a fascinating story. How this one single political party that was established as little more than an electoral that was initially established as a merger between the Liberal Party and the Democratic Party in the 1950s as an initially defense against communism ended up emerging as the most successful political party in the democratic world.
Besides maybe Welsh Labour until now.
I would argue that they were more successful than Welsh Labour because if you look at the electoral results that they got in the 1955 system, it was truly extraordinary. Their election results, like
Are
every
are we
election,
are
they
we
control.
talking are we talking the solid numbers?
More or less, yes. They consistently their average control of Parliament from during when the 1955 system was created was 62% of the Parliament was controlled by them on average, and that was the case for all of 1955 up until 1993.
Yeah, and now somehow this current Getty government has done better than that, at least in my understanding.
Yes, it's beaten all of their initial successes. Their best result prior to this in terms of seat numbers was in 1983 when they were led by Yasuhiro Nakasone, who was quite a well respected and well known Japanese prime minister because he was the prime minister when the bubble economy was at its absolute height. And he also tried to do a lot of very interesting diplomacy. He tried to diversify the country's security status because he wanted to make deals with the Soviet Union, the People's Republic of China, and the European Union, or the EEC at the time, because he wanted to sort of diversify Japan's security framework so it wouldn't be as reliant upon the United States as was at the time. And Washington was very, very mad at him for doing that. And especially with regards to him wanting to normalize relations with the Soviets. So
Oh
much
yeah.
so that they threatened to steal Okinawa from Japan and annex it as a state if he agreed to a peace treaty with the Soviet Union over World War II in the Northern Territories.
This was Reagan at the time, right?
Yes, it was Reagan at the time when Nakasone was Prime Minister.
Yikes.
But yeah, he was regarded as their most successful guy, but she's managed to top him. And
Well,
even in terms of vote share, like seat share of the party, they've managed to beat their 1960 result, which is when they were led by Hayato Aikida, who was the one who was responsible for the income doubling plan in 1960, where they got 64% of parliament, but they've managed to top that and get 66% now.
okay.
Tom,
So
can
yeah,
Tom, can I ask you one question? Do you have any books on this stuff?
Oh, there's a whole bunch of books, depending upon what sort of time period you want to cover.
I'll probably DM you about it at some stage. But if you accept my follow request, I'm waiting on for about a year. Not that I've mentioned it. But yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of books. I mean, some of the ones that come to mind are basically there was a book that was written called Embracing Defeat, which immediately covered the post-war period, and how Japan dealt with that and their response to the defeat in World War II and what direction the country would take moving forward. Um, that's a good one as well. Um, the There's another one as well. I think it was called like the Devil of the Showa, which was a book that was focused on Nobusuke Kishi, who was Prime Minister of Japan and Shinzo Abe's grandfather. Very interesting sort of biography on him in particular.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So
And I
No,
think for the
I mean, I do just want to learn more about it, but like, I'm just asking for book recommendations.
let's see. We'll first say one thing I want to ask Tom is, given the fact that the Liberal Democrats have now done so well under this leader, see what do you think is going to happen with the opposition? Because they tried to do a merger with their former partners, and now that's gone well, and it's like unlikely to have a recovery of the opposition for a very long time, right?
more than likely, yeah, the opposition has just been a complete mess at the moment. They tried to form the Centrist Reform Alliance, which was a merger of the CDP and Komeito, which ended in complete disaster for the CDP. Although Komeito didn't do that badly. They got 24, they went from 24 to 28 seats, which was not bad. Not bad at all, really. Especially considering the position that they were in before that.
Okay.
But overall they're just in a complete mess at the moment because they've been wiped out across the board and they've just got no way of providing any kind of opposition to the LDP at the moment. So what you're just going to see from them is infighting, ego clashes, no coherent strategy or performance whatsoever, and God only knows what will happen to the Centrist Reform Alliance because it was created specifically to stop the exact scenario that has occurred from occurring, and that did not work at
So
all.
it's likely to split up at the very least, or possibly.
Very possibly, yes.
Yeah.
Very possibly that it could end up fracturing and collapsing.
See, the only way I probably could see this, the opposition, if whether it splits and becomes its two parties again or stays, recovers, is if I know this new prime minister doesn't do well in the next few years. But from the looks of things, that's unlikely to happen for a while at least.
Yeah. By the way, the main book I think would probably be that really explains what the LDP is like, and probably the best one that I've seen is the book is called The Liberal Democratic Party of Japan: The Realities of Power, written by Koji Nakakita. That's a pretty good book. That's the one that I read to give me the insight into what the LDP is like, and then there's quite a few others that cover specific people within the LDP, like Abe, Koizumi, Junichiro Koizumi, and
I'm being honest, every book you give me so far, I've looked at the opposite route, and it's minimum 4 out of 5, so I trust you on that one.
yeah. If you want to, and also if you wanted about Abe himself, probably the best book I've read about him is called The Iconoclast, written by Tobias Harris, I believe his name was, which is a very good insight and biography into Abe, his family, and his political development and his premiership up until 2020.
Okay, fair enough. So,
Well, cheers. By the way, Tom, I wasn't pressuring to give me book recommendations, but I appreciate it.
all right. Well, at the
But
very
yeah,
least, you've managed to promote a few books. So I guess I suppose most things have been covered. I guess with this election, unless there's anything else.
the
But I guess the only question left to ask is: does anyone think this prime minister will do well for Japan, or do you think she's the next in the line of chaos and confusion?
That greatly depends upon her economic policies because, and this is why I don't think the Thatcher comparison is really good for Takaichi, because she is not Thatcherite at all when it comes to economic policy. In fact, she is the complete opposite. She is extremely Keynesian when it comes to economic policies because she wants interest rates slashed. She wants massive increase in spending, more borrowing in order to fund infrastructure projects, social welfare programs, and other such stuff. She's not a fiscal hawk in any way, shape, or form. She is very, very much somebody who is in favor of taxing and spending in order to fund multiple different parts of the Japanese state, and in particular military matters as well.
Yeah, I can't
Um,
see.
but the problem with that is that it's not really sustainable to do that with Japan's current economic problems and situation. Their debt to GDP ratio is far too high. Bond yields are far too high. It would be extremely inflationary. The yen is too weak, and making it weaker will increase inflation because Japan is an island nation that is dependent upon imports in order to survive and function as a modern society. So I think that her success is really going to depend upon how well she manages the factions within the LDP. If she can navigate the factionalism within the party, which is going to be very bad because of how big it is now, and whether her economic policies get put in place or not. If her economic policies are watered down significantly because of the bureaucracy in Kasumi Kaseki, and if the business lobby, which is called the Keidaran, controls her and stops her from doing her more wacko economic policies, then yeah, she probably will last quite a long time. But if she overcomes all of that and starts putting her economic policies into place, then I see the yen crashing big, bonds surging, and her getting kicked out immediately
Uh,
afterwards.
I'm being a bit honest, it is rare to see a G7 leader within the past decade, lasts longer than a couple of years.
Yeah, and that's because the problems of all these countries just keep escalating and none of them really know how to resolve it. I mean, if I was to say what she will probably be like, I think she will just be a repeat of what Shinzo Abe was like. I don't think she will be any different to how he was. And I think she will just emulate everything that he did. Basically, I think that she won't rock the boat and she won't completely fuck the country, but I also don't think she will fix any of its problems or get it on the right path.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see. In terms of like,
Basically, Japan will continue to be the ultimate example of the nothing ever happens country, where it will all just stay the same and carry on as usual. The
okay,
only thing that I think may change under her, and even then I still view it as unlikely, is she may finally get rid of Article 9. But even then, I view that as unlikely.
okay. So let's see. The one big change that could happen, but still unlikely to happen, at least anytime soon. Fair enough.
Yes.
Let's see. I would probably say in terms of like G7, the only leader that you can tell that's lasted more than one term is Macron, and that isn't really much of a positive.
I think you might be able to add Giorgia Meloni to that list as well.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, other than that, let's see. It seems like she's got possibly got some sort of like her own sort of bond market threats, at least, because I know in the UK they keep saying the bond market will not react positively to a soft left Labour leader. But yeah, I think let's see at this point, let's see the UK is fed up of whether or not the bond market's like our leaders or not.
Yeah, more or less.
Let's see. So,
I mean, I will be keeping an eye on her just to see what she is like. But the biggest worry from her more than anything else is definitely her economic policies.
yeah, I suppose
Um,
she's. As I am curious to see if she does well. That might mean there's more. Let's see. As Josh says, that's just cut from client media, John. Yeah, that's fair to be fair because they always suck up to Starmer. But yeah, but I suppose let's see. One thing, if she does well, that might mean that maybe more female politicians could become prime minister Japan. If not, I know they might get a bad rep, like how I guess Liz Truss and Theresa May have kind of done that for the UK.
I think that in many ways that's kind of an unappreciated thing from her is that inadvertently she will probably, it will depend upon how well she does, but if she does as well as Abe did, then I think that will be quite a positive thing for women in Japan. Because one of the biggest problems within Japanese politics with regards to women is that most of them are not taken seriously at all by their political peers, because they essentially are viewed as incompetent, useless, and not really
Well,
right for the position that they're in.
a
Um,
lot of a lot of that is due to the age of most of their MPs, to be honest.
it is that is a reason behind it as well. The age of the people does have an impact on why women in politics are viewed that way. But if she does well, and is relatively successful, then she could serve as an example for women in Japan to do more better in politics and achieve much more success in general. And if that's what she does do, then I think that overall her premiership will be considered a positive one, simply because breaking down that sort of glass ceiling and perceptions will generally be quite a positive thing for women in Japan and Japan in general. So even though I don't agree with her on much of anything politically, if that's the only thing that she does, then I think that she will be a good prime minister in that sense.
Okay, fair enough.
It
Yeah,
is still very much early doors.
yeah.
Oh, of
I mean,
course, as I said, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with her in its very early days. But if she does do that, then I think that is a positive thing, and I think that her premiership, just by that alone, will be considered a positive thing.
Oh yeah. At the very least, there might be some positive social change, at least in terms of Japan politics, at the very least. But that is the only thing. But granted,
It's always been a deficit between what the public want and what the political establishment want, because when you look at what the public want, they do generally favour more promotion of women's equality within the society. Like, the support for having a female emperor empress is like 90%, but the politicians are flatly opposed to that.
Didn't they have a very similar like situation to Meghan Markle, to where like it's that like one of the princesses married a commoner and was told to get out of the family or else you won't be entitled to anything or something like that. I think it was a couple of years ago.
Yes, that did happen. Her name was Princess, I believe it was Maiko, I believe her name was. Yeah, she married a commoner and she left the family as a result of that and gave up all her titles.
Even though he wasn't really, even though he wasn't really common, I'm pretty sure the guy was an actor or something like that. But yeah, but to Japanese royalty, it would be considered a commoner, even though he was a celebrity among locals. But yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I do believe that there is a male heir currently to Japan throne, but I heard that people prefer that he's the nephew of the current emperor, and they prefer the daughter of the emperor actually became the empress or something.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, I know about him. He's the only male heir to the throne, because all of the other children they've had have been daughters. So yeah.
Let's see. So who knows? It's possible if this female. I'm not sure if this would change anything, but I wonder if that female PM doing well could affect perhaps maybe royal line succession.
Possibly.
But yeah. Other than that, I suppose Italy's had its first female PM, and apparently she's doing well for them at least, even though I don't agree with her politics, from my understanding. Yeah, and arguably, I guess Thatcher did pave the way for female leaders. Unfortunately, just about every female leader after her has been rubbish, minus Nicola Sturgeon. But even then, she got involved in scandal when she left. So it's like a double-edged sword.
I mean, she was more associated with her husband, who was spending the money, and she was sort of overseeing it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's the problem with that.
Let's see, and as the Skullman is pointing out, Thatcher was rubbish too. Arguably, yes, but people half the country like to think she's a success. But yeah. Well, anyway, I think we've basically covered everything we can of both Keir Starmer and, of course, the Japanese election. So, yeah. Anyway, Tom and Robin, it was great to have you both on board. Skullman, good to have you, as well as Frank. Your comments were quite helpful. And I guess I'll chat to you guys. We'll do another one of these. Skullman going worse than May and Fizzy Lizzy in the long run. Arguably, her legacy is probably the most negative. But yeah, given that most of the crappy politicians come from that ideology. But yeah. But yeah, arguably, I hope let's see. But yeah, it was fun chatting with you with these two topics. Perhaps it went a bit longer than I intended, but nevertheless, it was fun. Let's see, good night all. And I guess I'll see you both next time. And I guess we discuss politics, but I guess that depends when Swiss is doing something or if, let's see, there's something major to talk about, which can be fair, could be happening pretty soon, knowing this country.
It could happen in the next few days, to be honest.
Yeah.
How unstable everything is.
Yeah. Though I'll have to find the time, of course, because I've got plans for the weekend, but yeah, and the weekdays, but yeah. but maybe Friday night or something, but at best. But yeah, anyway, but I guess for now, Cooperman, Robin, and Tom, goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Right.
And with that,